The nation's capital, a city of power, of ambition, of whispered secrets. But within its stately facades and bustling streets, some truths remain stubbornly hidden, shrouded in the impenetrable fog of what might have been. On a warm summer night, a life meticulously built, brimming with promise, was extinguished. Not by a random act, but by a chilling betrayal within the sanctuary of friendship. A story of a bright future abruptly ended, leaving behind a silence that screams questions and a justice that remains elusive. This is the story of Robert Wone. Robert Wone, at 32, was the embodiment of the American dream. A Chinese-American, his journey began with a strong academic foundation, culminating in a bachelor's degree from the College of William and Mary and a Juris Doctor from the University of Pennsylvania. His intellect was sharp, his work ethic undeniable. For 6 years, he honed his legal skills at Covington & Burling, a prestigious Washington D.C. firm, specializing in complex commercial real estate law. He was a rising star, known for his meticulous attention to detail and his approachable demeanor, respected and admired by colleagues and clients alike. In 2003, Robert married Catherine Yu, a union that promised a future filled with shared joys and quiet contentment. They settled in Fairfax County, a suburban oasis just an hour's commute from the demanding world of D.C. law. Among the guests celebrating their union were Joseph Price and his boyfriend, Victor Zaborski, long-standing friends from Robert's college days at William and Mary. Their presence at such a pivotal moment underscored the depth of their bond, a friendship seemingly built on trust and shared history. Just 2 months before the events of August 2006, Robert embarked on a new chapter in his career, accepting the significant role of general counsel for Radio Free Asia, also located in Washington, D.C. It was a testament to his continued professional ascent, a position of trust and responsibility in an organization dedicated to disseminating uncensored news and information. There were no outward signs of conflict, no shadows on his path, only the steady climb of a man forging his own destiny. Yet a subtle shift was occurring.
His new responsibilities occasionally necessitated late-night meetings, a new work schedule that would, inadvertently, lead him to a friend's doorstep and into the heart of an unfolding nightmare. There were early signs, innocuous at first, a need for a place to stay, a simple request for hospitality, but no one recognized them for what they were. They were the threads weaving a tapestry of tragedy. The evening of August 3rd, 2006. The stage was set, unknowingly, weeks in advance. Robert, requiring a place to stay after a late-night meeting with night shift employees at Radio Free Asia, reached out to 2 friends whose homes were conveniently located near his D.C. office. One of those friends was Joseph Price. Joseph readily agreed, offering the hospitality of his home. His residence, an upscale townhouse in DuPont Circle, was a place of comfort and familiarity. Joseph lived there with Victor Zaborski and another man, Dylan Ward. The meeting at Radio Free Asia concluded around 10:24 p.m. At that precise moment, Robert placed a call from his office phone to Joseph, confirming his departure. The short journey to Joseph's townhouse would be his last. Sometime after arriving, Robert drafted 2 emails on his BlackBerry. The first, a message to his wife, Catherine, confirming his arrival at Joseph's house, bore a timestamp of 11:05 p.m. The second, at 11:07 p.m., confirmed a lunch appointment for the following day. These were the mundane, routine actions of a man planning for a tomorrow that would never come. The tranquil night was shattered. Sometime prior to 11:35 p.m., a next-door neighbor reported hearing a distinct scream of despair emanating from the townhouse, a sound that pierced the quiet of the night, a cry of profound distress, so clear
it prompted an immediate memory for the witness.
At 11:49 p.m., Victor Zaborski placed a frantic 911 call. He reported that a friend had been stabbed by an intruder. The calm facade of the DuPont Circle townhouse had been irrevocably broken, replaced by the chilling urgency of a desperate plea for help. Within a remarkably swift 6 minutes, paramedics arrived at the scene, responding to the urgent call. Victor Zaborski, seemingly distraught, guided them to the second-floor guest bedroom. There, they found Robert Wone. He lay on the bed, 3 stab wounds marring his torso. He exhibited no signs of life. His body was already cold. A pervasive sense of the unnatural immediately permeated the scene. Strangely, there was no blood flowing from the wounds, no substantial pool of crimson around the body, save for 2 small stains on the bed itself, and a few minor spots on a nearby towel. This lack of active bleeding from fresh wounds was a critical early red flag. A blood-stained knife lay conspicuously on the nightstand, an apparent instrument of death, yet its placement seemed almost too perfect, too deliberate, almost staged. The police arrived after midnight. Their initial sweep revealed no signs of forced entry, no shattered windows, no jimmied locks. There was no indication of theft, nothing disturbed or missing. The scene did not scream random violence. It whispered something far more sinister, far more intimate. In Dylan Ward's bedroom, investigators discovered a cutlery set. It was meant to hold a block, 2 knives, and a fork. One knife, a specific 4.5-inch blade, was absent. It was not the same knife found on the nightstand. The disparity was noted, filed away as another unsettling detail. Blood-sniffing dogs were brought in, their keen senses indicating traces of blood in a drain and, unsettlingly, in the lint filter of the clothes dryer. The narrative of a simple break-in began to unravel, replaced by a growing knot of suspicion. The public, initially confused, began to feel a creeping unease. The city held its breath, waiting for answers that would not come easily. The initial attempts to question the 3 occupants, Joseph Price, Victor Zaborski, and Dylan Ward, proved immediately challenging. Joseph Price spoke on behalf of all 3, presenting a unified front. They were transported to the police station for separate interrogations, but crucially, they were not under arrest. The allowance of breaks, opportunities to step outside, and the ability to confer with one another created an environment where the truth, if it was to be found, would be fiercely protected, carefully constructed. After several hours, they declined further questioning without legal counsel, and the police, lacking the grounds for immediate arrest, allowed them to leave. The authorities found themselves navigating a labyrinth of perplexing details, struggling to construct a single, coherent theory that could reconcile all the emerging evidence. The timeline, in particular, was unnerving. Robert's final emails, timestamped at 11:05 p.m. and 11:07 p.m., indicated his arrival and plans for the next day. The 911 call came at 11:49 p.m. This shockingly narrow window, less than 45 minutes, suggested a swift and efficient attack, followed by a meticulous manipulation of the crime scene. The speed of the event indicated either extreme planning or a brutal, almost clinical efficiency. The autopsy further deepened the mystery. Robert had been alive when he was stabbed, yet he had offered no resistance. He had remained still. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle, no indication that he had been tied or restrained in any way. This contradicted the natural human instinct for self-preservation, begging the question of his state of consciousness at the moment of the attack. How could a man, lucid moments before, simply remain motionless while being fatally stabbed?
Suspicions of drugging immediately arose, offering a potential explanation for his stillness. However, the toxicology report returned completely negative. No sedatives, no illicit substances. Robert Wone was, by all scientific measures, sober and alert when his life was taken. This absence of drugs only intensified the baffling nature of his non-resistance. Then came the discovery of semen on Robert's body and within his anal cavity. This was initially perceived as a smoking gun evidence, a definitive link to an attacker. Yet the subsequent DNA analysis yielded another astonishing result. The semen belonged to Robert Wone himself. The revelation ignited fervent debate. Was this a sexual assault where the assailant's DNA was meticulously removed? Or could there be a physiological explanation? Experts debated the possibility of post-mortem semen release, or the presence of seminal fluid without sperm, a distinction often overlooked by initial reports. The fluid found was characterized as seminal fluid without sperm, a point that continues to fuel discussion about whether a sexual assault occurred or if this was a macabre physiological response post-mortem. The question of sexual assault, however, continued to haunt the investigation, adding a layer of violation to an already brutal crime. The 3 torso wounds presented their own enigma. Nearly identical in depth and angle, they suggested the work of a single hand, delivered with a precise, controlled intent. 2 wounds were flesh-deep, yet one had penetrated Robert's sternum, a feat requiring significant force and a deliberate, powerful thrust. This combination of precision and power was deeply unsettling. Investigators obtained a replica of the 4.5-inch knife missing from Dylan Ward's cutlery set. It proved to be a more consistent match for Robert's wounds than the knife found on the nightstand. The implication was stark. The nightstand knife was a diversion, deliberately placed to mislead.
The nearby towel, likely used to transfer Robert's blood onto that blade, further suggested a carefully orchestrated attempt to obscure the truth. The original 4.5-inch knife, the true weapon, vanished, never to be found. The truth was closing in, slowly, painfully, but it remained out of reach, obscured by layers of deliberate deception. For over 2 years, the case remained in a chilling limbo. The authorities, despite a thorough investigation, were reluctant to press murder charges. The complex web of contradictory forensic evidence, the lack of a clear, undeniable motive that could be proven in court, and the absence of a direct, irrefutable link to the 3 men made conviction for murder an almost insurmountable uphill battle. Without eyewitness testimony or a confession, the intricacies of the scene itself became both the primary evidence and the primary impediment. The legal complexities of proving specific intent in such a manipulated environment left prosecutors deeply hesitant. The case passed between multiple prosecutors, each grappling with its intractable complexities, each weighing the strength of the evidence against the high bar of reasonable doubt.
Finally, in late 2008, Assistant U.S. Attorney Glenn Kirshner made a decisive move. Joseph Price, Victor Zaborski, and Dylan Ward were arrested, not for murder, but for tampering with the crime scene, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. It was a strategic maneuver, an attempt to bring some measure of accountability, even if it wasn't for the ultimate crime. The prosecution aimed to prove that the 3 men had collectively created the false narrative of an intruder, staged the scene, and disposed of critical evidence. The 3 men, now defendants, employed highly skilled defense attorneys. They waived their right to a jury trial, placing their fate solely in the hands of a judge. The trial began in mid-2010. It was an unusual proceeding, characterized by the prosecution's thinly veiled intent to hold the 3 men responsible for Robert's murder by proving they covered it up, even though the formal charges did not explicitly state it. The state sought to prove a concerted effort to manipulate the scene, to cover up the true circumstances of Robert Wone's death. The verdict, when it finally came, was a staggering blow to both the prosecution and those seeking justice for Robert. The judge declared that she held moral certainty that the 3 men were indeed guilty of tampering. However,
she concluded that the evidence was insufficient to convict all three beyond a reasonable doubt. The critical hurdle was the inability to distinguish the exact roles each man played in the alleged tampering. The legal principle of having to prove each individual's specific actions in the tampering, rather than a general conspiracy, proved fatal to the prosecution's case against all three. Without clear distinctions between who did what, she felt she had no choice but to pronounce all three of them not guilty.
A moral conviction, yet a legal acquittal. It left a profound sense of injustice, a hollow victory for ambiguity. The legal battle did not end with the criminal trial. Robert's widow, Catherine U. Wone, pursued justice through the civil courts, filing a wrongful death lawsuit against Joseph Price, Victor Zaborski, and Dylan Ward. This civil proceeding offered a lower burden of proof, focusing on liability rather than criminal guilt. The civil case was ultimately settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, a private resolution to a very public tragedy, but one that many interpreted as a tacit admission of responsibility. In 2024, Glenn Kirshner, the prosecutor who brought the tampering charges, spoke publicly, revisiting the case that has evidently haunted him for 14 years. He articulated his strong disagreement with the judge's ruling, reiterating his unwavering belief in the moral culpability of the three men. He stressed a critical legal point. If new, conclusive evidence were to emerge, particularly evidence directly linking the men to the murder itself, the three individuals could still be brought back to court for murder. Such a prosecution would not violate the principle of double jeopardy, as the original charges were specifically for tampering, not for the murder itself. The possibility, however remote, of a future reckoning remains, a faint hope for true justice.
For many, particularly within the Asian American community, the story of Robert Wone has become a stark and frightening reminder. It speaks to the fragility of human life, the devastating potential of betrayal by those closest, and the frustrating limitations of a justice system that, despite its best intentions, can sometimes fail to provide closure. The case of Robert Wone lingers as a spectral presence, a testament to an unsolved crime, a life unfairly stolen, and a profound question mark etched into the annals of Washington, D.C.'s criminal history. His memory is kept alive by those who refuse to let the questions fade. The DuPont Circle townhouse, once a symbol of friendship and urban elegance, now stands as a silent monument to unanswered questions. Robert Wone, a man of integrity and promise, met his end not in the unpredictable chaos of the street, but within walls he believed offered sanctuary. The evidence, meticulously gathered, ultimately proved too ambiguous, too manipulated, to definitively point a finger in a court of law. His story is a chilling reminder that sometimes, even in the glare of intense investigation, the truth can remain stubbornly veiled, concealed by a calculated silence. Justice ends a story, but it never restores what was taken. Robert Wone's memory endures, a quiet plea for the truth that remains, over 16 years later, tragically unspoken. His case remains a haunting whisper in the corridors of justice, an enduring testament to the shadows that can fall, even in the brightest of lives, and the enduring quest for a justice yet to be served.